Dear students, today we are going to discuss the importance of plantation crops in India. The term plantation crops refers to those crops which are cultivated on an extensive scale in a large contiguous area owned and managed by an individual or a company. The crops include tea, coffee, rubber, cocoa, coconut, arecanut, oil palm, cashew, cinchona, etc. These plantation crops are high value commercial crops of greater economic importance and play a vital role in our Indian economy. Now we will see the scope and importance. Plantations are essentially large agricultural undertakings, but they also have certain industrial characteristics. Plantations provide high level of productivity and employment apart from their contribution towards rural development. With modern technology and management tactics, plantation makes the optimum use of marginal land resources. Economic importance of various plantation crops. 1. They contribute to national economy by way of export earnings. These crops are occupying less than 2% of the total cultivated area, that is 3.82% of total crop land, but they generate an income of around rupees 16,000 million or about 12.72% of the total export earnings of all commodities, which is equivalent to 75% of total earnings from the export of agriculture produces. Second is, India is the leading country in the production of tea, which accounts for 47%, cashew nearly 66% and arecanut about 67% in the global scenario. Third importance is, plantation industry provides direct as well as indirect employment to millions of people. For instance, tea industry offers direct employment to 10 lakhs people and indirect employment to 10 lakhs people, while cashew processing factories alone provide employment to 3 lakhs people. Besides, 2 lakh farmers are employed in cashew cultivation. Fourth importance is, plantation industry supports many byproduct industries and also many rural industries. For example, coconut husk is used to produce coir fiber annually to a tune of 2,19,600 tonnes in India. Then next is, these crops help to conserve the soil and ecosystem. Tea planted in hill slopes and cashew in barren and wastelands protect the land from soil erosion during the rainy season or due to heavy wind. Status of national and international scenario of plantation crop industry. The area and production of plantation crops have shown a steady increase over the last few decades. Presently, the cumulative area under 6 major plantation crops, namely coconut, arecanut, cashew, tea, coffee and rubber put together adds to 5.12 million hectares. Apart from this, crops like oil palm, cocoa, cardamom, pepper, nutmeg, etc. also cover an area of 0.60 million hectares. Tea and coffee. One of the major components of world beverage market, tea industry is one of the oldest organized agro industry in India. India stands second in terms of global tea production with a share of 24.9% next to China. We have 12% share of world tea exports and is also one of the largest consumers of tea in the world. Next is areca nut. India is the world leading producer of areca nut with a share of nearly 50% of the total production, but the productivity is well below that of China, wherein 2745 kg per hectare is harvested annually. The areca nut economy is driven by strong domestic demand, which is estimated to be more than 3.3 lakhs tons per year. Coconut. India is one of the major producers of coconut in the world with a share of about 16%. Along with Indonesia and Philippines, it constitutes more than 75% of the global coconut production. India has the highest productivity in coconut with a productivity level of 10,600 nuts per hectare, whereas the average global productivity stands around 5,833 nuts per hectare. Though India is a major producer of coconut, the entire production is consumed in the domestic markets. Edible oil from coconut constitutes 14.4% of the secondary source of edible oil in our country. The coir industry, a major scale industry in the country, is inherently dependent on coconut plantations for the raw material. Even though Kerala has the maximum area under the crop, Tamil Nadu is the major producer due to the high level of productivity in the state. The average productivity in Kerala and Tamil Nadu were 8,109 nuts per hectare and 16,387 nuts per hectare respectively. New products like virgin coconut oil, health drinks like Neera, bottled tender coconut water has great market potential and increases the income from coconut. Next is cashew. India is one of the leading producers, processor and exporter of cashew in the world. India stands third in the production of raw cashew nut in the world behind Vietnam and Nigeria. India is also the leading exporter with a share of 65% of the global exports for its superior product quality. Cashew is cultivated in nearly 1 million hectares of land with a productivity of 760 kilograms per hectare. Next is rubber. The productivity of rubber in India is the highest in the world and the country is the third largest consumer of the natural rubber. It is estimated that the annual turnover from the rubber industry surpasses 500 billion rupees. The entire domestic production is consumed by the well-developed rubber-based industries dominated by the auto tire and tube industry. The production is not sufficient to meet the demand and the country remains a net importer of natural rubber, accounting for nearly 10% of the global consumption. Smallholder producers dominate the rubber production economy with more than 90% of the area under the crop being operated by smallholders. Next is oil palm. Oil palm cultivation has assumed added significance in the recent past due to its potential for augmenting the indigenous availability of edible oil. Presently, an area of 0.23 million hectares of land has been brought under oil palm cultivation, largely due to the efforts undertaken through the Oil Palm Development Program, which is called ODDP. Andhra Pradesh accounts for about 60% of the area under oil palm in India. Oil palm with its high yield of oil per hectare has great potential in meeting the growing demand for edible oil. Next is cocoa. India's share in global production is very negligible, but the crop has immense potential to develop as a major commercial crop, especially in the southern parts of the country. The rising domestic demand for chocolate confectionery should also drive the expansion in area and production of the crop. The present level of domestic production is barely sufficient to meet 30 to 40% of the domestic demand. India has emerged as the fastest growing market for chocolate, with the chocolate market growing at a rate of 15% per annum. India produces about 14.4 thousand tons of cocoa beans from an area of 56,000 hectares of plantation. Area, production and productivity and export potential of plantation crops. Area and production is more in Kerala. For example, it occupies nearly 1,073,000 hectares with a production of 4,359,000 metric ton, followed by Karnataka, which occupy 679,000 hectares with a production of 14,010 metric tons, whereas Tamil Nadu has about 503,000 hectares with a production of 3,810 metric ton. Andhra on the other hand has 289,000 hectares with a production of 1,021,000 metric tons. Now we will see the importance of GAP, that is good agricultural practices, which involves certain principles, namely clean soil, clean water, clean hands and clean surfaces. These principles must be applied to each phase of production, that is field selection, pre-plant, field preparation, production, harvest and post-harvest, so that GAP will be most effective. Clean soil. Clean soil involves taking steps to reduce the possibility of introducing microbial contaminants into the soil, particularly via manure and other animal excrement. GAPs addresses the need to properly compost, apply and store manure. Additionally, the exclusion of domesticated animals from production field is essential in helping to reduce the possibility of fecal contamination. We should also take steps to minimize the presence of wild animals in fields, which is also an important factor of clean field. Clean water. Clean water entails making sure all water used in washing, cooling and processing is of drinkable quality. Packing ice should be also made from drinkable water. Ground and surface water sources need to be protected from runoff and animal contamination. Water used for irrigation and foliar applications also need to be free from human pathogens. Regular water quality testing may be necessary, particularly for surface water sources. Clean hands. Clean hands applied to workers and the use of good personal hygiene in the field and packing houses. Clean surfaces. Clean surfaces means ensuring that all packing bins, work surfaces, storage areas and transportation vehicles are properly washed, sanitized on a regular, often daily basis. Farm equipment should be also routinely cleaned and sanitized. Record keeping. An essential aspect of GAP's producers is accurate record keeping. While keeping records is an important part of any farm operation, it can become critical in case of food safety issues. When foodborne illness do occur, attempts are made to trace the contamination back to the point of original. Growers who document their GAP's producers will be able to provide evidence that their farm is an unlikely source of the outbreak. Good agriculture practices in plantation crops. Pre-planting measures. One is site selection. Land or site for plantation crop should be selected on the basis of land history and previous manure applications. Manure handling and field applications. Livestock manure can be a valuable source of nutrients, but it also can be a source of human pathogens if not properly managed correctly. Proper and thorough composting of manure, incorporating into soil prior to planting, and avoiding top dressing of plants are important steps towards reducing the risk of microbial contamination. Manure storage and sourcing. Here, manure should be stored as far as away as practical from the area where fresh produce is grown and handled. Physical barriers or wind barriers should be erected to prevent runoff and wind drift of manure. Manure should be effectively composted so that high temperature achieved by well managed aerobic compost can kill most harmful pathogens. Production measures. One is the irrigation water quality. Ideally, water used for irrigation should be quarterly tested in laboratory for pathogen. Farmers can also filter or use the settling ponds to improve the water quality. Next is the irrigation method. Drip irrigation method should be used whenever possible to reduce the risk of crop contamination because the edible part of most crops are not wetted directly. Plant diseases levels also may be reduced. Worker facilities and hygiene. Ideally, farm workers should be provided clean, well maintained and hygienic toilet facilities around the farming area. Harvesting. Here, clean harvest should be aimed. Here, bins and all crop containers have to be washed and rinsed. Bins should be properly covered when not in use. Personal hygiene. Good personal hygiene is particularly important during the harvest of crops. Sick employees or those with contaminated hands can spread pathogens to the produce. Post-harvest handling. Here, the worker hygiene is also important. Hands can contaminate fresh fruits and vegetables with harmful microbes. Packing area should be cleaned and sanitized. Supply liquid soap in dispensers, potable water and single-use paper towels for hand washing. Next is monitor wash water quality. Potable water should be preferably used in all washing operations. Clean water should be maintained in dump tank for sanitizing and changing the water regularly. Use chlorinated water and other labeled disinfectants to wash fresh produce. Sanitize packing house and packing operations. Loading, staging and all food contact surfaces should be cleaned and sanitized at the end of each day. Packing material should be stored in a clean area. Transportation of produce from farm to market. Proper cleanliness of the transportation vehicle should be ensured before loading. Farmers have to make sure that plantation produce are not shipped in trucks which have carried live animals or harmful substances. If these trucks must be used, they should be washed, rinsed and sanitized them before transporting fresh produce. For traceability norms, it must be ensured that each package leaving the farm can be traced to field of origin and date of packing. Organic production of plantation crops. Organic farming is an integrated farming system that strives for sustainability, the enhancement of soil fertility and biological diversity, whilst with rare exceptions prohibiting synthetic pesticides, antibiotics, synthetic fertilizers, genetically modified organisms and growth hormones. It relies on fertilizers of organic origin such as compost, manures, green manures and bone meal and techniques such as crop rotation and companion planting. Biological pest control, mixed cropping and the fostering of insect predators are encouraged. In general, organic standards are designed to allow the use of naturally occurring substances while prohibiting or strictly limiting synthetic substances. For instance, naturally occurring pesticides such as pyrethrin and rotenine are permitted, while synthetic fertilizers and pesticides are generally prohibited. Synthetic substances that are allowed include, for example, copper sulfate, elemented sulfur, ivermectin, genetically modified organisms, nanomaterials, human sewage sludge, plant growth regulators, hormones, and antibiotic use in livestock husbandry are prohibited. Reasons for obligation of organic farming include real or perceived advantages in sustainability, openness, self-sufficiency, autonomy, independence, health, food security, and food safety. Organic agriculture methods are internationally regulated, legally enforced by many nations, based in large part of the standards set by the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movement, this short form called IFOM, an international umbrella organization for organic farming, organizations established in the year 1972. Organic farming in plantation crop is close linked with environmental issues. Environmental issues in plantation crops production primarily include 1. Stress on water resources, 2. Soil erosion and loss of productive capacity, 3rd is pesticide residue, 4th one is crop residue and other solid waste, and last is the atmospheric emission. Stress on water resources. Water management for plantation crop production should aim to optimize crop yield while conserving the quantity and quality of water resources. Surface or groundwater resources used for irrigation should be managed in accordance with the principles of integrated water management. We have to determine the quantity and quality of water needed for each crop production. And also we have to evaluate the capacity of groundwater or surface water resources, and accordingly we have to select the compatible crops with the water availability and maximize the use of available precipitation, for which we have to adopt rain harvesting wherever possible, and we have to reduce the runoff by methods such as conservation tillage, terraces and raised ridges that follow the land contour, then diverting water with the catchment area towards the crop themselves, store runoff water from the rainy periods for use during dry spells by using tank, ponds, cisterns, etc. We have to reduce evaporation by avoiding midday irrigation and using drip system of irrigation techniques, and reduce seepage loss in channel by lining them or using closed conducts. Control weeds on interrow strips and keep them dry. Avoid over and under irrigation to decrease the water wastage. Maintain border vegetation in canals and drain system. Maintain a water management logbook that records precipitation, rainfall and irrigation applied in order to develop an understanding of the long-term trends in water use. Next is soil erosion and loss of productive capacity. Soil degradation may result from poor management, especially due to excessive use of machinery and over-intensive farming practices. Sediment is a significant pollutant due to its physical properties, potential chemical interactions and total loads. Suspended sediment carries pollutants such as pesticides, nutrients and trace metals, causing water quality problems. Suspended sediment chemically and physically deteriorates, causing water quality problems resulting in reduced use. The settling of suspended sediment reduces storage and flow capacities of streams, lakes and reservoirs, adversely affecting water supplies and increasing flood potential. Soil loss prevention practices include such as nutrient integrated nutrient management practices to avoid nutrient depletion or accumulation. Use crops suited or adapted to local climate and soil condition. In areas with steep slopes, carefully consider planting zones and direction of planting in relation to land contours to avoid erosion caused by precipitation and irrigation. Use stone barriers, vegetative cross slope barriers, terraces or drainage and diversion canals to prevent wind and water erosion. Use appropriate machinery to avoid soil compaction caused by excessively heavy equipments. Use plant cover or intercrops to reduce erosion from heavy rain. Increase the organic matter content in the soil by applying organic matter such as crop residue, compost, manure to protect the soil physically from sun, rain and wind and to feed soil biota. Next is pesticide use. The primary aim of pest management should be not to eradicate all organisms, but to manage pests and diseases that may negatively affect production of the plantation crops so that they remain at a level that is under an economically and environmentally damaging threshold. Pesticides should be managed to avoid their migration into off-site land or water environments by establishing their use as part of an integrated pest management IPM strategy. Some of the stages of IPM strategy include giving preference to alternate pest management strategies with the use of synthetic chemical pesticides as a last option. We have to rotate crops to reduce presence of pests and weeds in the soil ecosystem. We can use pest resistant crop varieties. We can adopt mechanical weed control or thermal weeding. We can support and use beneficial organisms such as insects, birds, mites and microbial agents to perform biological control of pests. We can protect natural enemies of the pest by providing a favorable habitat such as bushes for nesting sites and other original vegetation that can house pest predators. Use animals to graze areas and manage plant coverage. Use mechanical control such as traps, barriers, lights and sound to kill, relocate or repel insects. Crop residues or other solid waste. The largest volume of residues in crop production is crop residues themselves. Although waste with most significant impact is often related to pesticides containers and absolute expired pesticides. Prevention and control of potential impacts from the generation of these waste include the actions like recycle crop residues and other organic materials by leaving materials in the field, plowing and composting, reuse crop residues as a thermal energy fuel in bioenergy facilities, as a substrate in fermentation facilities and a feedstock in biorefineries. Then clean, that is triple rinse technique, and dispose of it, that is through crushing, shredding and return to suppliers, pesticides packing and containers to ensure that they are not subsequently used as containers for food or drinking water. Rinsing solutions should be recovered for reuse as diluting agents or stored for eventually disposable. Atmospheric emissions. Atmospheric emissions are primarily associated with the emissions of fuel combustion by products including carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, that is SO2, nitrogen oxide and particulate matter resulting from the operations of mechanized equipment or from combustion from products from the disposal or destruction of crop residues. Recommended prevention and control measures include like manage emissions from the mechanized farm equipment according to the recommendations of the government, adopt reduced tillage operations to increase the carbon storage capacity of soil, wherever feasible use biofuels instead of fossil energy to reduce net greenhouse gas emission, wherever feasible favor solar drying technique for crops that require drying, reduce particulate matter emission by avoiding burning straw or other organic materials in the field or by maintaining organic matter to protect soil against wind erosion, during and after soil preparation activities, avoid unintended emissions of persistent organic pollutants which may arise from open burning of pesticides treated agricultural waste. Next we will see carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration is the process which involves carbon capture and the long-term storage of atmospheric carbon dioxide or other forms of carbon to mitigate or defer global warming. It has been proposed as a way to slow the atmospheric and marine accumulation of greenhouse gases which are released by burning fossil fuel. Many plantation crops such as rubber, cocoa and oil palm sequester carbon as opposed to many annual crops. Summary. So, the term plantation crop refers to those crops which are cultivated on an extensive scale in a large contiguous area owned and managed by an individual or a company. The crops include tea, coffee, rubber, cocoa, coconut, arecanut, oil palm, cashew, cinchona, etc. These plantation crops are high value commercial crops of greater economic importance and play a vital role in our Indian economy. Plantations are essentially large agricultural undertakings, but they also have certain industrial characteristics. Plantations provide high level of productivity and employment apart from their contributions towards rural development. The area and production of plantation crops have shown steady increase over the last few decades. Presently, the cumulative area under 6 major plantation crops, namely coconut, arecanut, cashew, tea, coffee, rubber put together adds to about 5.12 million hectares. Apart from these, crops like oil palm, cocoa, cardamom, pepper, nutmeg, etc., they also cover an area of 0.60 million hectares. The area in production is more in Kerala, followed by Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Good agricultural practices, that is GAP, of clean soil, clean water, clean hands and clean surfaces are important for making the produce internationally competitive in quality and food safety. Another dimension to achieve global acceptance is shifting towards organic farming. Organic farming is an integrated farming system that strives for sustainability, the enhancement of soil fertility and biological diversity, whilst with rare exceptions prohibiting synthetic pesticides, antibiotics, synthetic fertilizers, genetically modified organisms and growth hormones. The plantation crop sector in India has tremendous potentials by following modern technology adoption and mechanization.